Listeners, hi, I'm here today with Santosh Sharan, co-founder and CEO of ZeerAI. How are you doing today, Santosh?
I'm doing very well. Thanks for reaching out, Robert, and I'm looking forward to this conversation.
Yeah, me too. So, first question, considering the increasing customer acquisition costs and the declining efficacy of traditional outreach models, how does ZeerAI innovative approach of deploying autonomous AI agents fundamentally reinvent the go-to-market strategy for B2B businesses?
Yeah, let me unpack this. That's quite a mouthful, right?
Yeah, yeah. So it's really okay. You can continue.
Yeah, yeah.
Sorry.
I can unpack what that means for us. So for the last 20 years or so, we have seen automation in go-to-market being very helpful, right? But we have reached a point where that same automation is causing more damage than help. And let me elaborate. I think it's turning into the future holds. There's room for smart automation, and there's a lot of dumb automation going on right now, right? Because we just pick a list of 10,000 buyers or prospects and blast it out, right? So that I would call it dumb automation. The future belongs to more intense signals and so on. So what ZeerAI is doing is we are building AI tools to cut through this noise. So all this automation has done now is generating noise, right? So playbooks that used to work before now no longer works because everybody else uses the same playbook, right? So sales math no longer works, where you could do certain level of activity and be ensured of certain outcomes because again everybody's following the same things. Using AI agents for buyers and for sellers, and then using AI for research, we think we can cut through this noise where we can make a very personalized matching service between buyers and sellers.
Yeah. So could you elaborate a little on the concept of what a true digital replica is?
Yeah,
So if I understand and did my research correctly, the clone to clone
right,
interaction is used to get you to a point where you have a qualified lead. And at that point, it hands it over to
right,
someone like yourself or
right.
myself or whomever.
Yeah, totally. So we are not trying to replace the humans. We think real selling happens with the humans. But
Okay.
then before the selling, there's a lot of noise. I think the problem today is sales reps are doing 90% of the calls they do. It does not lead to a business. So we just want to take away that noise and let the agents do those calls. So you asked, what is a true digital replica? A true replica of us is an agent that not only understands all that I do, but is continuously being trained every day, every moment. So we live in a world where we're leaving a lot of digital footprint behind. Some are internal, some are external. Agents now with AI and LLM, we can turn that to answer probably 80%, 90% of the queries that I would answer with similar level of I guess, authenticity. And then take that to reduce noise. Never during the process we promise that we'll close a transaction, but we just want the best match to happen so humans can take over and do the conversation.
Okay. What mechanism allows your platform to leverage B2B data, conversation insights to improve sales strategies? Are there metrics that you look at to allow
Yeah, so
Xeer AI to take that interaction?
yeah, so there are some metrics that are important. One of them is the agent answering at a high percentage rate the right question the way I would approve the answer. So the way the agent is designed, I look at the conversation daily, and if I don't
Okay.
like some answer, I go change it, correct it on my Slack, and then the agent understands, and then next time it gets better. So I'm looking at number of satisfactory responses as one of the metric. The other metric is how many conversations agent recommended that turned into business,
Okay.
right? And then how many conversation the agent rejected after. So number of man hours saved, because I would have to take those calls and reject that, right?
Right.
Versus my agent doing it. Yeah, these three metric kind of help me understand how valuable the tech is.
Right. What was your aha moment, for lack of a better term, in the industry that steered you to create Xeer AI? What were you seeing in the marketplace?
So my aha moment was like about a year ago. I realized that the very same tools, the very same playbooks that I've used in the last 2 years, it just simply stopped working. And I realized that not only my pipelines were down, but I spoke to my friends and colleagues, and everybody's pipeline was down. So it seemed like the industry needs a bit of a reset or something new in the next few years to cope with this. So, for example, I'll give you an example of a playbook. Say somebody raises $50 million in venture funding.
Uh-huh.
So 10 years, 20 years ago, some vendors would reach out saying, hey, you raised 50 million, you want to grow. We have some tools, software, data, technology that'll help you grow your business, and let's talk, right? So if the CEO receives 5 email, that's great. I mean, it's all contextual, it's all relevant. The conversation makes sense. But now the problem is the cost of data has gone down, cost of automation has gone down, where with $50 per month, everybody can send this email. So now think about the same CEO that raises $50 million. The CEO receives 500 emails instead of the five. And all 500 are contextual,
Right.
right? Which makes it a spam. So, ironically, too much of a good thing in the hand of everybody has made it a bad thing, right?
Right.
And this is why we need a reset.
Right. And it's also, like you said before, you would have to be physically on all those calls. So now you have the ability and the bandwidth to take on so much more that's coming into your funnel, for lack of a better term, that AI is taken care of, and you don't have to physically be on the phone to do that.
Right. So AI is helping in two ways. At least Xeer is using AI in two ways. So one is the agents, which makes it all completely autonomous to carry out
Mhm.
conversations. And the second is we are also using AI to disrupt research, because traditional research was not personalized and not AI driven, like Gartner type research. So Gartner says, here is a Gartner grid, and these five companies are leaders and ahead of the pack, and everybody should work with these five companies, right? That worked when there were only 20 companies in the market. You could take five and make them leaders, right? But now there are 500 companies in the category, right? And then picking up only the five that pay the most, it doesn't make sense, because you need complex matching between these companies and buyer of products, right? Which only AI can do. So we are building tools to disrupt research and then run these calls autonomously, or it is qualification call, and use the research in these calls and so on.
Right. And then you obviously have metrics that show you where you have a qualified lead, right? Because
Yeah, totally.
not all correspondence, relates into a qualified lead. So,
Yeah.
as a tech company, AI company, you're obviously using AI every day, and
Yeah.
that's the foundation of your business is creating those models. Where do you see your company in the next 2 years to 5 years? The advancement of AI, um, and what are you doing to either identify what that looks like in the future so you stay competitive, or what steps are you taking to, if you don't know, figure out what it is?
Yeah, so a lot of the AI solutions being built out there today are endpoint solutions. But with AI, it's become so easy to copy each other's work that anything I build will be copied, and very soon there'll be like 20 competitors, right? So
Yeah.
we decided to build a platform and not a endpoint solution. So we are calling ourselves a buyer-led go-to-market platform. So some of the workflows I shared, they result in multiple apps, like 7 or 8 different apps that can help the buyers and the sellers using AI to run conversation, agent apps, research apps, and so on.
Yep.
So we are building a whole platform. So in the next 2 years, you said, where do I see myself? I see a new go-to-market platform emerge. Right now, we are in the early stages of it. We only have maybe 2 apps, 3 apps, but I hope to have 30 apps or 20 apps in the next 2 years. And these apps are like features of a platform. So the platform would be such that sellers would hook up their workflow, and they'll get leads that are like already 30% likely to close, very high likelihood to close. And then buyers, when they hook up to this platform, they will get answers to their buying question, like research type queries, without instantly using AI and agents, without talking to an analyst. So
Right.
that's kind of what we hope to get to in the next 2 years. And I hope that, selling and buying B2B is a $600 billion business every year. So I hope some of it moves to buyer led, because all 600 billion right now is seller led.
Okay. I did not know that. Yeah. Yeah, because it's funny when you speak to different people like I do every day. A lot of companies, you ask, some companies when you ask them, do they use AI in their businesses? And yeah, we use Chat GPT every day. The business is not one size box fits all, right? There's different forms of AI. There's custom solutions. It's not just chat, right? There's other forms of
Right.
AI that specialize in doing certain tasks.
What are some of the, if I can ask you, what are some of the best AI related apps that you have seen for go to market?
For like email marketing, Instantly is very good, right? It
Yeah,
automates. I've been able to train that, and I get comments all the time that they felt that our
the email was nice.
interaction was lifelike, and I really didn't do anything. I mean, there's a few of them,
Right.
like I watch it, don't get me wrong, and I'll jump
Yeah.
on, but for the most part, it's all AI driven. So I really like Instantly. I use a form of Copilot for my LinkedIn outreach. I'm working on it. It's not as effective as Instantly is. It could just be the LinkedIn platform, right? The sales
Got it.
navigator.
Yeah.
It just
Makes sense.
might not be that arena where you think there's all those potential leads. I think a lot of professionals have LinkedIn, but it's really not something they watch on a daily basis. Yeah, so those are the two big bot type AI apps that we'll use for
Right.
outreach. But when it comes like to companies, I have engineers that will come in and they can custom build lead generation systems to specifically suit and target the
Mm.
needs that you have. And it seems to be the most success I've had is really those custom solutions that we offer.
Mhm.
I'm not the engineer or the tech wizard behind that stuff, but I have a really good team that's, worked very well with clients to really achieve or surpass the expectations of what they're looking to obtain. And I'd say most of it's lead generation, right? Sales is probably the most important thing of any business in the marketplace, right?
Yeah.
Without sales, yeah, there's no business. So I would say that's predominantly my clientele. I do have some other, custom type, like for construction companies, scheduling and CRM type platform work. But
Okay.
all in all, it's lead generation, especially today, with financial institutions. Everyone's scrambling to understand AI, it seems like, and try to implement it in a fear that they're going to get left behind or
Hmm.
jobs are going to be lost. I think that's, I don't buy into, it's going to be catastrophic. Everyone's losing their job type thing.
Right.
So what you end up getting is I just had a client, I can't divulge his name, but he does a tremendous amount of money every month in the financial world. And
Hmm.
he only spends 10 hours a week in lead generation, and he came
Okay.
out of the gate the first year, he was doing fantastic, and then now it's kind of just like it's dropped off, it's attrition, right? You have
Hmm.
clients, you lose clients, you need more clients, and he's just spending the time in product development and not spending the time doing sales. And that tends to be, for me anyways, that tends to be the design of the clients that I end up working with
Hmm.
is lead generation. And I just think that it's really transformable that where AI can manage all this data and automate all this work. It's almost inexcusable in my mind in today's day and age
Right.
that you don't have a steady pipeline of leads, right? The
Yeah.
tools exist where you don't have to spend 40 hours a week trying to do sales, or you don't have to hire a sales guy or
Hmm.
gal to do sales for you. It's just not needed anymore. I always say you want to strike a perfect chord between
Yeah.
AI and humans. You
Yeah. Yeah.
actually have that perfect chord. You've
Hmm.
struck it where
What I'm
it's
hoping.
clone to clone to a
Mhm.
qualified lead. At the end of the
Right.
day, we're all humans. We all want this interaction, right? And you want to know that you're buying something from a human being. You
Yeah.
want that
Exactly.
comfort level with them.
Yeah.
And I
Real.
think what intrigued me about Xeer AI is when I was doing the research on you, is that you have struck that chord. You understand that AI is a tool, but at the end of the day, it's the human being selling.
Right. Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't take that
So
away. And there's so much complexity. People buy not just because of product, they buy because of emotional connect, because of reasons that you cannot really codify into an AI. So why try? But you can qualify them And even if you make some mistakes in qualification, I think that is more bearable than making mistakes in selling.
Well, yeah, I mean, you have to be in the game, right? If you're not in the game, there's no gain.
Right.
Maybe you don't have the data or you're willing to share, but, you know, to understand as you sit here today, predicated on your software, and it seems to be very advanced. It's impressive. How many of your qualified leads actually turn into sales, right?
Right.
And
Right.
I bet you whatever that number is, it's a hell of a lot better than if you weren't
Yeah. So
um,
it's definitely
using
better.
AI. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally. No, we can tell it's better just from the early stages because we can compare the qualification metrics with like a SDR team and the expense and even the
Mhm.
quality of qualification. We can, and then sometimes you make that bet between you can take 2 weeks to qualify versus if there are agents on both end, you can qualify in minutes,
Right.
right? So sometimes that time is worth a lot because then now you save 2 weeks. Now you can go out and do some other things. And so there are different ways to measure efficacy. In terms of later in the stage, how many of these close? We have just been around few months and some of these sales cycles are long, and I think in another 3 months 6 months we'll start seeing a better metric around closing, but
Yeah.
around qualification, even in 1 week 2 week we can begin to see how quickly this can qualify, because if it needs to talk, so imagine you're trying to schedule a call with a sales rep, and then during scheduling it says, hey, you can go ahead and schedule, that's fine, but here is a link, you can talk to my agent right now and then decide to schedule. Or and then as they have this conversation, the value of this conversation is multifold. So one is they can qualify themselves in or out, which is great.
Mhm.
But let's say they didn't arrive at that conclusion because
Mhm.
it was a gray area, or it still makes sense to talk. We tend to be liberal, and but then even if they didn't, now they have provided enough information to make the human call so much more valuable,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? So even then it's useful.
Right. And it's the unseen power in that is just the sheer number of opportunities that you're able to entertain and interact with, right? You
Right.
like having a sales team of 10 and you would never be able to achieve the amount of opportunity you're able to do now that's automated, right?
Yeah,
Because
totally.
it would take a human being, hours and days to understand whether that lead's qualified or not versus, not having that overhead, right? AI, they don't take vacations, they don't need healthcare, they don't
Right.
sleep, and they don't get sick,
They work
right?
instantly. Yeah. And then
So
even for the buyers, if you think about it, buyer receives an email outreach. Now, the ask in that email is schedule a 30-minute call. Now, maybe the
right,
buyer has some questions, but they don't want to invest 30 minutes 2 weeks later. They want to ask that question right now to decide whether my 30 minute is worth investing. So
right,
if there was an agent link right there saying, okay, schedule a 30-minute call 2 weeks from now, but then talk to my agent right now, right? And ask the same question. So even for the buyers that we interviewed, they felt that agent was a smaller ask from them, or talk to somebody right now, even if it's an AI and that can answer 80% of the questions autonomously or carry out a
right.
conversation. So it helps, I think, lower the hurdle to a 30-minute conversation.
No, it does. It definitely does. One, I own a couple businesses, but the one business I do own is in a completely different realm. It's an e-commerce. It's a high ticket outdoor living company. And the
Mhm.
the business model behind that is all these high-end brands don't sell direct to consumer, so you got to go through a dealer like myself. And I would say 90, not 100% obviously, but 99% of the sales I make, my AI agent handles. Right?
Oh, wow.
It's to your point. They answered 95% of
Right.
their questions, and it was most of the
Correctly.
time, it's just enough to be able to just to get them to say, "Screw it, I'm buying," or it gets handed off to myself or someone else on my
Right.
team that'll actually, it's the people that want a little more personal interaction. That tends to be more of the higher ticket stuff, right? You're spending 30, $40,000 on a
Wow.
sauna or something, right? You kind of want to know there's a human being there. So, but it's just a few short years ago that didn't exist, right? It was
Yeah, no, those are the new businesses of future where you take the cost
yeah,
out, and it's
yeah,
premium, and I mean, those are some of the best opportunities out there.
yeah, yeah. Well, I think reality is that market's a little saturated. It's still going to prove. I mean, a few short years ago it was $500 million industry. Now
Mhm.
it's multi trillions of dollars, and it's just going to go up from there. But I know the business you're in is the future.
Thank you.
It's going to be. I looked at COVID years ago. I got two things right in my life. I found my
Mhm.
wife and I married her, and I sized up COVID. I've made a lot of other mistakes in my life,
Nice. But COVID was
but I
advantage.
sized up COVID and I said,
Nice.
this is going to be the biggest technological boom, bigger than the
Right.
dot coms that this country's ever seen or might ever see. And that's when I
Mhm.
started reinventing myself and getting into AI and creating the business that I have now.
Wow. Yeah, you were certainly ahead of the curve.
Yeah, you are too, man, because this is like really we're at the
Mhm.
starting line. I know
Right.
AI's existed since 1946, but what existed in 1946 is nothing compared to what we have today. So yeah, I mean, I wish you the best of luck, and I think you're going to do amazing. Yeah. Is there anything else you'd like to tell the listeners?
Well,
Like I said, this platform we cater to the CEOs, the founders, C-suite, people in the
yeah.
B2B industry.
So let me share the second order effect. We spoke about the first order effect of AI in go to market and how to do it,
Mhm.
right? But I think there are second and third order effects of AI. So let me see if I can share some of that. Could be interesting to some of your audience. So because of AI, the cost of development is going down, which means every sector that had say 30 vendors fighting now will have 300 vendors because it's becoming so much easier to copy tools that exist, right? And because the cost of development is so low, they're going to have like 5 customer and that pays off like a 3 people team and 5 accounts, and that's a profitable business. So there's just going to be more and more companies that look alike doing the same thing with just like they'll all fight for the same market share. So this will turn CAC to like some unattainable heights. So the cost of customer acquisitions will grow very high, right? Because if you think the market is noisy right now, 4 years, 5 years from now, it'll be like 10x more noisy,
Oh,
right? So in a time like this, how do you start a company? How do you become heard? How do you cut through this noise to find your customer? How do you retain them, right? I think those are some of the second order effects of AI. Right now, we are looking at AI as productivity or research, but soon we'll have to worry about in all of our businesses when there are 300 competitors and like 800 competitors. Then how do you even cut through that noise? And they're all trying to lower price and continuous spiral of lowering price. And but we are living through some very interesting and unprecedented time.
yeah. So yeah, that's so true on the acquisition side. Now, you think about client retention. Now you have the customer, right?
Right.
That's where I think that human to tech balance
Yeah,
really
exactly.
starts to come into play, right? That client, the continuous human contact with that client is going to play a big role in retention, right? And obviously
Yeah,
the
totally.
services that you sell. I mean, the services you have to sell have to work and, your deliverables have to be met. But
Yes. So
client
the
retention
fourth,
is where the human interaction really becomes important.
totally,
Because
the businesses.
I think tech for the most part is, almost taking care of the acquisition part, right? For the most part.
Yeah, yeah. So the last 20 years, if you think about SaaS, most of the business came from net new acquisitions because there were still pockets of customers that had never used any similar tools before, right? So you could go out and acquire them and like greenfield markets and so on. So, but the next 20 years, there are no more greenfield. Everybody that is in market already has used similar tools before, right? So it's all
Mhm.
competitive displacement, right? But now with competitive displacement, it gets complex when there are 5 times, 10 times more vendors than there were in the last 20 years. So the cost of acquisition, so the best companies would be in the last 20 years, best companies were go to market machines that could acquire net new business at a high velocity. But next 20 years, it'll be go to market engines that could retain companies rather than acquire. You can't just keep churning through if your acquisition cost is very high. You have to find ways to retain. And I think the right companies that will retain these customers are going to be more of a platform companies. Customers will want to So if acquisition cost is high, then why would you do one tool? You would do 10 tools
Right. You
as
want a
part of a
CRM
platform.
platform, right? You want a
Right, because
CRM,
you
right?
subsidize the cost, right? Otherwise, if it's one tool, say the acquisition cost was $100 and your tool costs $1,000 a month, it's fine.
Uh-huh.
But then if the acquisition cost rises 10x to $1,000, now you can't afford to
Right.
just with one tool. Now so the best companies will be platform companies, and then there will be tremendous pressure for premium vendors because of AI is also driving us from subscription revenue to outcome based revenue, right?
Right. Right.
Which new vendors that are AI native, they can afford to have outcome based revenue because their costs are down. But legacy vendors that were non AI native, they have high cost structures. So they will start to fold up or start to give some market share to. I do see reshuffle in the market with new vendors coming in AI native with lower cost of acquisition. And then go to market will play a bigger role now. More power will shift. So, like podcasts like this or content, all that will start to drive a community and a moat, which becomes important. Last 20 years, technology was a moat. Next 20 years, technology is no longer a moat
No,
because
it's a
AI can
skyscraper.
replicate
Yeah.
technology.
Yeah. No, I mean, podcasts are a great platform to connect and talk about
Right,
ideas, and at the end of the day, it's probably an ultimate, a sales tool as well.
right, right. Yeah, community building tool. And
Yeah. I want to thank you. This was been a great conversation.
yeah, I enjoyed the conversation as well.
I think you're got a solid base here, and I think where you're headed is exactly where the AI technology should go.
Thanks.
Congratulations.
Yeah. If you
Yeah.
have use cases where you think this could be leverage. We are always looking for early users, design partners, customers, whatever. Feel free to
Yeah.
reach out.
Yeah. All right. Well, I want to thank you for joining, and it was a great conversation.